ahead and get started. So if the projector comes, I don't think I'm going to take the time to switch it over. If everybody, can you see it enough? Yeah. You think? All right, okay, good. All right, well then we'll just go with this. All right, well, thank you all so much for coming. I apologize for the wait, but you know, we tried. So my name is Bohanec, and I am the projects manager for United Poultry Concerns. I have also written this book, The Ultimate Betrayal, Is There Happy Meat?, about all those labels we're seeing, the cage-free, free-range, organic, and I'm going to be talking about that issue as well. Anyway, so just wanted to point out my book. But today I really want to focus in on chickens and talk about chickens. And I'm going to start with talking about United Poultry Concerns and the work that we do, because they really are an amazing organization, and I feel so blessed and honored to be working for them. So UPC has a bird sanctuary in Virginia. We have 121 permanent resident birds in our sanctuary in Virginia, just outside DC. This is Karen Davis. She is our founder and president. She started UPC in 1990. Yes, 1990. And this is Carla. She's with Carla there. And this is Oliver, another one of our permanent resident birds. We do rescue of birds that come through the sanctuary and are adopted out, as well as the permanent residents. But we do so much more. There's education and outreach, like what I'm doing here today. Tilt it down a little.
I won't get the ceiling lights.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool. So yeah, you know, education outreach. We're not only at Veg Fest, but at the Green Fest and other communities that are not necessarily vegetarian focused, trying to really get out in the community with the message of compassion for chickens. And we have our International Respect for Chickens Day. That is May 4th, kind of the whole month of May, where we really want to draw attention to chickens, the plight of chickens, the concerns for chickens, and why we should have compassion for chickens. And this is a really wonderful picture of, it's Ruby, I just want to make sure, it's Ruby and Ivy, I just want to make sure to get the right one. Ruby's the chicken, and little Ivy is the chick. Ivy was rescued from a Purdue poultry house that she just happened to get separated and left alone. And she was rescued and taken in by the UPC sanctuary. And Ruby just adopted her. This is not her chick. She just adopted her, and this is what wings are for, is for protecting chicks. So anyway, with International Respect for Chickens Day, we do all kinds of outreach. If you are interested in this upcoming May to do some outreach, we send information, literature, signs. You can do whatever you want, a leafleting, a table to protest. We can help you, guide you through that. And we also do bus ads that started in DC a few years ago. We have done DC and New York. And now we're starting them in San Francisco. And so, folks might have seen them in May. Did anybody see them?
About wings? Something about wings?
Yes, what wings are for.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So that's great that you saw them, and everybody that's nodding. That means that so many more people saw that too. Saw that message. So those bus ads are really, really crucial, and they're very expensive. So we encourage your donations for the International Respect for Chickens Day. And we're going to be doing one for Thanksgiving as well. Bus ad campaign for Thanksgiving coming up in November. So we also focus on this new kind of phenomenon of backyard, do-it-yourself, local, humane chicken killing. Small farms are actually conducting classes where they're bringing people in and teaching them to slaughter their own chickens. It's a very disturbing trend. It's a mixed bag, because it's hopeful in some aspects that people want to know, where their food comes from, and they feel like I should be able to kill it myself. But the thing is that we're desensitizing ourselves to violence, really. And people will say, oh yeah, the first one was really hard, but it got easier. It's like, well, that's what serial killers say, Let's not desensitize ourselves to the violence that it is, But anyway, we're working on a possible ban in a major California city on backyard slaughter. And if that takes, then it could be a set of precedent, and we could do it in other cities as well. So that's something that we're working on. And we do direct rescue as well. This is one of the rescues that happened not that long ago in Woodland, California, which is kind of up outside of Sacramento. There were 54 geese that were domestic geese and had been there for generations. They're just kind of feral domestic geese that were in a pond, a large pond that was just by a freeway. But because of the drought, the pond had dried up. And these poor geese were out there just wandering, starving, with no food, no protection from predators at night. They were being picked off little by little each night because they couldn't get out to the water to protect themselves. It was a really dire situation. They were in bad shape. So we stepped in and helped, with the help of a wildlife rescue, and rescued these geese and found them permanent, happy homes. So that's just another aspect of what UPC does. Okay, so now let's get into talking about chickens and specifics on chickens and the billions of chickens that are killed. And I mean, chickens, not even arguably, I would say for sure, are the most persecuted and in the most awful misery of any other animal on earth, and in the largest numbers. So unfortunately, it's really hard to see. Hopefully you can. But here on the left, or yes, your left, this is a typical battery cage egg laying facility, okay? These battery cages are, about no bigger than, just a small area like this. They cram as many birds in there as they can. These birds are on top of each other, sometimes literally living on top of each other. It is just a horrible situation. They're pooping on the cages below. They're living on wire mesh, which is very, very sensitive for their feet, and they sometimes actually even their feet grow into the wires because they're just so unable to move. It is really horrible, horrible situation. There's the stench of ammonia in these places it's just overwhelming. You walk in, the workers have to walk in with respirators because they can't, handle the stench. And so over here on the right, this is a typical broiler chicken house. Broilers are the breed, the genetic strand that are raised for their meat. Okay, so we've divided chickens now into two different genetic strands, the egg layers and the broiler chickens. And in this same situation where they're just living in their waste, just their muck and nasty is, they can't escape it. And people walk in and it's like, whoa, it's so intense to smell. Well, your nose is 5 feet off the ground. Think about their, being just a foot off the ground, just having to really live in it. It's such a horrible, horrible, miserable life, and so monotonous, just so void of any kind of stimulation. Chickens are amazing creatures. They love to sun themselves. They'll spread their wings out in the sun and just, love to get some sun. They dust bathe, where they kick up the dust in their feathers and it actually cleans their feathers. That's their kind of way of bathing. They're really incredible creatures that have a rich, rich life that's completely denied in these situations, just completely denied. So, egg layers in the wild, they're wild ancestors, which are the, like the wild fowl of Southeast Asia, would lay maybe, 2 clutches of eggs a year, maybe 20 eggs a year on average. These birds have been genetically manipulated to lay close to 260 eggs a year. And we're talking a huge, huge increase and so taxing on their little bodies. So they can have maybe 20 to 50,000 birds in these buildings. They're just wall to wall, beak to beak, on top of each other. It's just really awful. And these broiler houses are only cleaned out maybe every 2 or 3 years, so just the muck that they live in. And because these guys are genetically manipulated to grow the meat birds 65 times faster than in normal, than what they were. Birds raised for their meat, they go to slaughter at about 5 weeks. About 5 weeks old. We're often have to say, oh, I'd never eat veal, it's a baby. Well, guess what? These are all babies. 5 weeks old, that's it. That's all the life they get. It's very sad when they could live 15, 20 years. So another aspect of this is that, you know, like I was talking about the jungle fowl of Southeast Asia, you know, their life is full of color and stimulation and going up into the trees, and they nest and roost in the trees, and, you know, there's a lot of life that they live. In these situations, it's just so monotone and so devoid of any stimulation, any color, anything. And this, well, okay, transportation, we'll go into that, but I want to show you this image. This is kind of what happens. You know, these chickens live so miserably, and I think this picture really, it just really depicts the, you know, just the hopelessness, and the sadness and the fear that they live in. It's very, very sad. But let's go back to transportation for a minute. I did put this in here and wanted to talk about it. So transportation is another huge factor in all this that can be just a horrifying experience for them. The birds are roughly handled. They're terrified, grabbed by the feet, stuffed into these crates. They can suffer from broken legs and wings, lacerations, hemorrhaging, dehydration, heat stroke, hypothermia, heart failure, all of this on these, you know, day or 2 or 3 without food or water, exposed to the weather of all kinds, extreme heat, freezing cold, whatever it is. And, you know, a percentage of them, it's so stressful and so horrible, they die. But to the industry, that's an acceptable loss. You know, it's worth it, rather than give them any kind of comfort, a little bit of water. It's just not worth it to them. So, going back to this image, you know, chickens are, they're so full of life and curiosity and individual personality. People really don't realize. They look at chickens and think, oh, you know, it's just a stupid bird. And there's just so much more to chickens. And anyone that's had chickens or gone to a sanctuary and spent some time with chickens, you know, you learn that they are really amazing little creatures with their own little personalities and individual lives. So, you know, it's something that I think we need to talk more about, because people relate more to pigs and cows. And I think that it has to do a little with facial expression, a little with them being mammals, so there's more of a relationship to us. But chickens, it's been scientifically proven, but we don't need science to tell us that they are just as emotional and just as sentient and conscious as any animal. So there's an article in Science Daily in 2013 that stated that birds possess a range of skills, including a capacity for complex social reasoning and problem solving. There's more and more and more science coming out exposing this kind of thing. Okay, so let's talk a little about alternative production. So what this says is alternative production, cage-free, free-range, humane, etc. So this is a cage-free operation. Okay, cage-free operation. How different does this look than the other pictures that I showed you of the industrial farming?
Not really different.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not different at all. In fact, it's pretty much the same as a broiler house for meat chickens. You know, they're still completely overcrowded. They're still debeaked because of the crowded conditions, that they have the potential to peck each other. So they're all debeaked. There's still the stench of ammonia. I mean, this is, you know, there's so little difference, and in most cases, no difference. You know, these birds are egg layers, so yes, they're out of the battery cages, but their life is pretty much the same as a broiler hen. What's the difference? It's really sad. And then free range, all you gotta do is a farmer could open a door in the back to maybe a little, you know, 5 foot by 5 foot concrete patio that like is so unappealing no bird would even want to go out there, and call that free range, because the bird has access to the outside. You know, I mean, these terms are not regulated. I talk a lot more about it in my book. There's, you know, so much detail about this that I just can't get into, so I encourage you to read the book. But you know, it's really you know, it's just really a myth that humane poultry and egg production is separate from industrial production. It's really not. And it was really interesting. I found, you know, I found this fascinating when I was researching the book. Most of these places, most of the places that you're getting, you know, cage-free eggs or free-range eggs, they actually are on the same farm with battery cage hens. So they'll have a shed with the battery cages, and then right next to them they have a shed of cage-free hens. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, isn't the farmer doing this because they want to do something better for the chickens? No, they're not. They're doing it because there's a market for it, because the separate buyer, consumer is going to pay more for those cage-free eggs. If they really cared, and if it was really different or better for the chickens, then wouldn't they have all the chickens out of the battery cages? No, they don't care. And it's not any different, and they know it, but they're like, oh, I can charge more. So, and something else I want to say about these conditions, chickens, like any animal, need personal space, okay? Like any of us. You know how you kind of need your personal space, right? And imagine a crowded elevator, okay? When you get in an elevator and it's so crowded you're kind of like touching the other people and you're like, God, this is really uncomfortable, come on, get to the next level, What if that was all the space you were given to live? That was it. That was life. That's how they live. It's horrible. Okay, so this says false advertising and marketing lies, and what we have is images. It says certified humane, raised and handled, and cage-free eggs, and you probably can't see it, but there's some kids here that are like with this little chicken in a nice little clean barn, Producers are, well now, again, it's one of these mixed bag things, because activists have been exposing the conditions of these horrible places. People are waking up to it, and I think it's a good thing. This whole humane thing that we're going through is really just growing pains to get to where we need to be. I do believe that, but it's very frustrating at times, I know, for us. But so producers are, they're trying anything they can to get you to feel good about buying this egg, to get you to feel good about buying that chicken meat, and guess what? They can lie out their teeth. So I live up in Sonoma County, California, and we have a farm up there. There's lots of farms, actually, egg farms that are doing all this cage-free, free-range stuff. There's one in particular called Judy's Eggs, and Judy's is touted as being, one of the best, one of the most expensive ones, and everybody's like, oh, well, if it's that price, I'll bet the hens are happy,
That's right.
So I have been to Judy's Eggs farm a couple of times. I've been out there, and well, okay. So the Animal Legal Defense Fund actually filed suit against Judy's Eggs for false advertising, because they say on their cartons and on their website that the hens are raised in wide open spaces in Sonoma Valley where they're free to run, scratch, and play. They claim that all the hens have access to the outdoors and enjoy large communal areas with natural ventilation and sunlight. No, I have been there. You do not see one chicken outside. You do not see a chicken at all. There are these huge sheds that have no windows. The birds are completely inside. They're in these situations like this, and they can get away with saying whatever they want. Well, luckily, there are now lawyers that are calling them on it. And the ALDF actually, it was a very long lawsuit. I talk about it in the book. And before there was an outcome when this was published, and now there has been an outcome, and ALDF did win the lawsuit. Judy's Eggs had to pay $50,000 in fines. I know that's all. Yeah, it's true, but it's something, it's something. And they had to take all that fluffy rhetoric off their website, as well as change the carton picture. The picture on the carton had a little hen and her chicks out in the field. They had to take that off. It's very sad, and there's so many of them doing this. So, okay. So, the hatcheries. This is something really, really important. When someone talks to you about, oh, but I buy free-range eggs. I know these chickens are happy. Here's the thing. Where did that chicken come from? No egg producer can profitably raise eggs and hatch their own chicks. They just can't do it. It doesn't work economically. They have to buy their chicks. The chicks get shipped in from these hatcheries. No matter the label, no matter the size of the farm, the chicks get hatched in these hatcheries. And as you can see on the left here, it's just metal drawers. You know, in nature, when a hen is sitting on her clutch of eggs, do you know they start to communicate to each other? They cluck and coo to each other, already communicating when they're still just in the egg. And that little chick says, you know, oh, I'm cold, I need more warmth, or you need to turn me. I mean, they know, they're having this conversation. It's so beyond anything that a woman can do with her, you know, child in the womb. I mean, it's really a beautiful thing. And that's all completely denied in any egg production, any meat production for chickens. They're hatched in these hatcheries, you know, and chicks are the symbol of gentleness and kindness. They're the symbol on our Easter cards. And they come into this world not in a warm nest with a loving mother. You know, they come into this brutal, mechanical, cold world of machinery and conveyor belts and workers handling them roughly. It's just this brutal, brutal place, the hatcheries. I actually interviewed a couple of people that worked in hatcheries for my book, and I have more detail about that in the book. But some of the things that they witnessed were just so brutal, so brutal that for these poor little chicks. So this is the hatching, the sexing process. So I don't know if you can see it, but the worker is sexing them, deciding or figuring out what sex they are. The females get tossed into one chute. Of course, they're going to be shipped off to an egg facility. The males, well, they're a waste product. The males don't grow profitably enough or large or fast enough. You know, we were talking about that 5 weeks for the broiler hens until they're all ready in 5 weeks to be slaughtered. The egg layers don't grow that fast because they've been bred to lay eggs. So the males are a waste product. The males get thrown away. So this is images, I don't know if you can see, of males being tossed in the garbage by the millions. They're thrown away, they suffocate on the weight of their brothers, they die of exposure, dehydration. Some go through conveyor belts into maceration machines where they're just ground up alive. So brutal, so sad that we're doing this to millions of babies, baby chicks. And this is the egg and meat industry for chickens, no matter the label, no matter what it says on the label, no matter the size of the farm, they are all bought into this hatchery horror. So they're shipped in the mail. These are some little chicks peeping out of a box. You know, and the shipping, it's really brutal. Again, same as the transportation, extremes of weather, no food or water. They're just treated like luggage and canned goods. They're just shipped through the mail in boxes. I mean, you know, you've seen probably, you know, the YouTube videos of how they treat packages, you know, just throwing stuff. You know, so it's just really awful, very, very stressful. And some of the males, they will sometimes use as what they call packers, because they know that a certain percentage of the chicks will die in the process because it's so brutal. So they'll put males in there hoping that, you know, with a percentage of them, the males will die because they're unnecessary and unneeded. Just really, really brutal. Okay, so my next slide is kind of my most graphic slide, and I just want to give you a warning. Please, you know, bear with me and bear witness to what happens. It's on a small screen now, so you don't put it on this big. But I think it's important for us to talk about this because, you know, people need to realize, you know, because we're at this place as a society almost fully, which I think is such a good thing, that people will say, well, we need to treat them good. They need to be treated well. You know, we shouldn't torture them. We gotta treat them well. But we still should, you know, we gotta eat them. We gotta be killed. It's just such a, you know, so we really need to focus on that the killing is brutal. The killing is inhumane. You cannot humanely kill someone or something. You know, someone, they're not something, they're someone. And then the other factor is that, you know, most of the chickens are just going to the same slaughterhouse as any of the other chickens at very young ages, like I was talking about. You know, and something that's you know, interesting about chickens being slaughtered is that they're not covered under the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act that was passed many, many years ago that said that you must render an animal unconscious before it's slaughtered. Chickens are not included, no bird is. Birds are excluded, rabbits are also excluded. So, you know, so what they do in an industrial situation in the large scale abattoirs is they have, they put them first through a stunning process. And people think that that means that, you know, that they're stunned into painlessness, that they're not going to feel the pain of the throat cutting. It's not the case at all. It's an electric shock, this stunning, that's incredibly painful, since like high volts of electricity through their whole body that they feel absolutely, they're shocked into paralysis. They can't move, but they're feeling everything when their throat is slit and they go through the whole process. But now there's this, you know, this new trend, of course, of animals being slaughtered on the farm and in kind of a smaller scale situation. And that's what I want to talk about, are the killing cones. So this is killing the birds on, you know, small farms that are killing them themselves. And, you know, and they're touting this as being more humane. Okay, well, let's look at that. Is it more humane? Well, you know, the chicken is still going to be frightened and disoriented, being shoved upside down into these metal cones. Their neck is pulled through, their throat is slit, blood spurts out into the catch sink. She can struggle, sometimes for minutes in agony. The throat it's full of nerve endings and pain receptors. This is not a non-painful way to die. Or a humane way to die. The Australian Veterinary Journal stated that the use of throat cutting without prior stunning must be considered an inhumane and barbaric practice. Yet this is the common method on both small scale and large scale slaughter. On our UPC website, we have a video of a free-range farm that's slaughtering their chickens in killing cones. And anyone that says to you, oh, well, they, you know, I eat the humane meat, have them watch that video. You know, it's brutal. It's incredibly sad. Okay, so this is Georgia, and I had the wonderful pleasure of meeting Georgia at Animal Place. I really encourage you to visit Animal Place if you haven't ever been. It's out in Grass Valley, and it's really, really wonderful. You can actually meet the animals and get to know them. Which I highly encourage if you haven't. And Georgia was rescued from a free-range farm. And what happened is they put identification bands on the birds when they were chicks, when they were little. And as they grew, they didn't take those bands off. And the band like grew into their skin and then into the bone in some cases, into the nerves and muscle. And all these birds were lame and in pain when they were rescued. They had to, the rescue animal place had to gently, you know, carefully remove all these little bands. And some of the birds, like Georgia, are still limp and lame, you know, have a limp or lame, and still have pain where those bands were. So this is free range, you know. The label doesn't matter. It's a brutal system when you're trying to make money off of sentient beings. Okay, backyard chicken keeping. So let's talk about this briefly. So can everybody see this picture? I kind of want to ask a question about it if you kind of see it. So it's forward. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think about, do you think this is a good situation for this chicken? What do you think?
Looks like the shed's kind of nice in the shed.
It's hard to see. Well, yeah, she's got a chicken coop, and you know, it's just this backyard chicken keeper, and she's holding him and kind of lovingly touching his foot. So it's a trick question. Okay, I'll go ahead and tell you. We don't know. We don't know if this is a good situation or not. You know, you may look at it and you look at that moment and think, oh yeah, look, she's got a clean coop, and you know, it's, yeah, sure, that's good. We don't know. Here's the thing. We really, at UPC, we encourage backyard chicken keeping. We feel that it's important and can be a really wonderful situation. it gets people to know chickens as individuals, like our companion animals. You know, we want people to keep chickens as their friends, okay? But there is some criteria that must be met for it to be an ethical situation for that chicken, okay? So let's look at that. So, what is the criteria for ethical backyard chicken keeping? Okay, so you're not gonna be able to read this, are you? I'll just tell you. All right, so number one, where did the chickens come from? Okay, where did that person get the chickens? You wanna never ever buy or sell a chick or a chicken, ever. The chickens need to be rescued. They need to be from some kind of rescue situation. And here in the Bay Area, there's so many rescues that are trying to get homes for chickens. It's really easy to get a rescued chicken. So you just want to be sure that the chicken or chick is rescued. Buying the chicks, even if it seems like a groovy situation, even if it's like, oh, it's from the feed store down the street and they're really local. Okay, well, guess what? Those chicks came from the hatcheries that I was talking about earlier. You know, you don't want to support the industry and feed it money. So do not buy or sell chicks or chickens. So a rescue chicken. Okay. Number two, it needs to have a clean, comfortable, he or she, I caught myself saying it, I'm sorry, he or she needs to have a clean, comfortable, predator-proof enclosure. So do they have, ask, do they have a large, safe, enclosed space to go in at night? Needs to be cleaned thoroughly every day. A great way to do that is with a putty knife. A putty knife is a great tool when the dried droppings are on a surface. You can scrape them off with a putty knife. They need clean food and water, of course. Number three, they need attention and affection. They need time and care. This is your companion animal, so they need your time. 5 minutes a day isn't enough. Give them your time. And a good thing to do is really to get down on their level. Like what they're seeing is your shin. They want to connect with you. Get down on their level, make eye contact. So number four, what about the eggs? Now this is the question I get all the time. So what's an ethical egg? Where can I get an ethical egg? Where can I get a good, happy chicken egg? So this is United Poultry Concern stance and my personal stance as well. We should never, ever eat, sell, or give away an egg. Ever, no matter what. We cannot look at eggs as food anymore. It's not food. It is a chicken's menstrual cycle, okay? And when we consider an egg food, we are setting up for exploitation in the future. There's going to be exploitation. We just can't feed the world eggs and have it be ethical. So we just gotta cut them out, okay? It's so important to identify as vegans. It's really important to identify as vegans. You're over at a friend's house and say they have a muffin, because you're eating your own ethical eggs at home. So you're considering yourself an egg eater, because I know my chickens are happy. I eat their eggs, they're happy chickens. You're over at a friend's house and they've got a muffin and they're like, oh yeah, there's eggs in it, but I know them. That's a good situation. It's just down the street. You don't know. You don't know. That down the street could be a big farm, where they're getting the chicks from the hatchery, where they're slaughtering the chickens at 2 years old. You don't know what that situation is. The best thing to do is say, no, thank you, I'm a vegan. And then we're sending a message, that no egg is ethical. Lastly, of course, this should be obvious, but I will say it anyway, we don't want to slaughter the chickens. They need to be able to live their lives out in peace, and also to be prepared for veterinary care. People don't realize, but these chickens are genetically manipulated, they get problems, and they may need veterinary care, which can be expensive. So if you're going to get into the chicken thing, be sure that you are aware of that and prepared for that. Okay, so let's talk about the environmental. Okay, so you can't see it, it's such a bummer because I always get a laugh on this one. But so it's a Hummer and the bumper sticker says, "It's okay, I'm a vegan." I just think it's funny. So we'll talk about the environmental. I certainly do not condone Hummers. It's just funny. All right.
Oh, I see.
All right, so environmentally. Now this one's really interesting. Did anyone go to that climate rally that happened in Oakland? Yeah, that was awesome. There was a lot of great energy. I went and I talked to some of the major groups that are in the film Cowspiracy, if you've seen that, like the Natural Resources Defense Council and Greenpeace, and asked them about, so why don't you talk about animal agriculture? Did you know it's the #1 cause of greenhouse gas emissions and stuff like that? And it was interesting because every single person that I talked to, it was only 3, but still. Every single one of those 3 people did not eat beef, but they ate chicken.
Yeah.
So we have this very misconception that chicken is the okay meat environmentally, that it's a little better, that they think it's much better. So we really have got to get that out of our consciousness. It's just not true. Having hundreds of millions of birds concentrated in these areas causes water problems, air quality problems, other pollution problems. These diseased carcasses in the slaughterhouses, or poisoning waterways, feces, heavy metals, chemicals, bacteria, parasites, pathogens, viruses. All of this nasty, nasty stuff is being concentrated, going into our waterways, into our water systems, causing algae bloom, high production of algae, which sucks the oxygen from the water and kills aquatic life. This is all happening because of chicken farming. So, and also the poultry litter. So on the floors with cage-free systems and the broiler systems, that poultry litter is like sawdust. But what gets mixed in with it after it's been in there for years is, of course, all the feces and nasty and dead birds and all of that. They take all that up and just dump it, by the millions of pounds. So, we're destroying wildlife habitat to build these ugly chicken sheds and slaughter plants. And smaller farms are really no better. It's really not better. Small farms don't alter the amount of resources that are required to raise these animals. It's the same. You just got a bunch of small farms instead of one big one. It's the same amount of water. It's the same amount of grain. All of that. It's no different. And currently 55% of our fresh water is given to animals raised for food, and that, of course, wouldn't change just if it's a small farm. Large farms actually, believe it or not, can be more conservative of resources because they can have automation. They're able to concentrate things more. Not that I condone this at all. I'm just pointing out that this small farm, it's not this ideal of environmental sustainability. If we're talking about animals. So free-range and organic farms require more land to use because, of course, you've got the same amount of animals, but you have to give them more space, right? So way more land. Right now, we really don't have the space on Earth to free range, give the animals all the space that they require and deserve. We would need closer to 5 planet Earths if we really wanted to free range all the animals. We just can't do it. It can't be done. And we'd have to, if everybody wanted their local farms, and we'd have to start clearing, forests and wetlands, and it just can't be done. Okay. And another factor, as I'm kind of wrapping up here, is the issue that, these chickens are sick and they're making us sick, okay? Chickens and turkeys go to slaughter lame, sick, with diseases, in pain. They're infected with salmonella and campylobacter and E. coli, other bacterias. They're foodborne illnesses that make people sick. And I'm not even going to get into the whole that if there's saturated fat, and there's all of that too that we know. But a factor with chickens is that they are actually the meat that is most likely to get you sick. A 2014 Consumer Reports expose revealed that virtually 97% of all chicken breasts in the U.S. harbor potentially harmful fecally transmitted pathogens like salmonella and E. coli. Okay, I'm going to say that again. fecally transmitted. Gross. This is because there's a bunch of shit on them. You know, it's just, And then, you know, and a chicken wouldn't normally be dirty. If they had the option and the space, they would clean themselves, but they can't in these situations. So there's so much, they're dirty, there's you know, feces all over them, and so it gets into the meat. It's just gross. Yeah, yuck factor then. Oh, and you know, organic chicken meat has been tested to be just as bad and have just as high levels of these pathogens, so organics know better. Okay, so this says focus activism on chickens. 97% of all land animals killed and eaten are chickens. That's what that says. So I need to wrap it up here, but you know, at United Poultry Concerns, we really feel that it's super important to focus on chickens. 97% of the land animals killed are chickens, so we need to focus a high percentage of our time on them. You know, for every one pig that's killed, 60 chickens are killed. For every one cow that's killed, 190 chickens are killed. So many more little souls. It's because their bodies are so much smaller. You know, and this is interesting as well. People will say, oh, well, I'm cutting back on meat. But when you poll those people and get deeper into what their habits are, many of them are just cutting back on beef and pork and replacing it with chicken. So they can actually kill more animals, cause more suffering, even though they think they're helping. You know? So this is stuff that really we need to get out there. For the total number of animals killed, pigs account for 1.5%, and cows only 0.05%. But chickens account for 97%. We kill 35 million cows a year in this country. We kill 35 million chickens a day in this country. So many more little souls. So, you know, and of course, like I said through the talk, these birds are the largest number of abused warm-blooded animals in the world. And along with the billions of birds that are slaughtered for food, there's millions more that suffer in laboratories, get dumped at animal shelters, die miserable deaths without anyone ever knowing they existed. So we really feel that our advocacy should reflect those numbers, and we should focus on chickens. So I really encourage you to come by the table. These are some of the books that Karen Davis has written specifically on chickens and turkeys. You know, I really encourage you to talk about, think about, and do your activism around chickens. They need us. They need us, and they deserve us. So please come by our table and get some of our chicken-specific literature. And Thanksgiving's coming up. We have a specific turkey brochure that you can hand out. You know, grab a stack. I have a whole bunch of literature that I don't want to go home with. It needs to go home with you. So, you know, grab a stack and take it with you. Bring it out to your community. Leave it at your Whole Foods, wherever. And thank you so much for your time. Questions? Is there a room monitor? No, of course not. Till 2:30? Okay, so there's not like an in-between time. All right.
There is, yeah. So my question is any group working on amending that Humane Animal Act that excludes birds?
Well,
not that that's ideal, but...
Right. Well, no, I know, but I guess why I did that is because it's so old. I mean, it was passed back, I think, in the 50s. Yeah, that is interesting. I think that actually, I think Karen did work on that maybe a while back. So yeah, I mean that is something that might. But the thing is that does so little. It helps so little, and even for the pigs and cows, you know, they use the captive bolt gun, but that doesn't necessarily render them unconscious, and oftentimes they're freaked out, they're moving, that they have to use that thing 3 or 4 times, and it's incredibly painful to get them out unconscious from that, and then sometimes they'll regain consciousness. I mean, I don't know that it's worth putting our time into that. Yeah. Any other questions?
Is there anything being done when you talk about that 55% of the water? You don't hear brown saying we've got to eat less meat to save water, is that, shorten your showers. How come there's no
Nobody's a
conversation?
You have a large
Yeah.
conspiracy. If you have
Yeah, they're showing it, I believe, twice here at 5:30 both days.
Oh.
It's a really, really great documentary about the environmental part of all this. Yeah, it's so frustrating. I actually wrote an article about this that got published on One Green Planet. That it's a, that's about that. That's like, we're talking about. We know that the majority of water in California is going to agriculture. Like that's the hugest portion of the pie of the water chart or whatever is going to agriculture, and of that, animal agriculture is huge. Our use, like personal use, is like this little sliver of the pie. It's like nothing. It's nothing. So yeah, sure, take a shorter shower. It's so little impact. It's very frustrating, but I think that the ag lobby is so powerful in California. Incredibly powerful, and everybody's in legislation, and Jerry Brown included, are kind of scared to touch that. Yeah, did you have something you want to say?
There was actually an ad, a full-size ad on the BART station that said skipping 1 gallon of milk was equivalent to so many showers.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Is that the Factory Farm Awareness Coalition that did that? Yeah, that's great. That's the message we need to get out for sure.
So
because
it's
now
getting
with this
out.
drought, everybody's so concerned about it, and yeah, it's like you really want to make an impact. I mean, it's true. People are like, oh, well, I'll take a shorter shower. It's like, well, why don't you eat a veggie burger? Why don't you have some tofurkey? That's going to be way better.
I think Cowspiracy had the quote too, that 1 hamburger is worth 2 months worth of showers.
Yeah. There's a lot in there. There's some great stats.
Yeah.
Great stats in Cowspiracy. I really encourage you to watch it. Yeah.
Where can we buy your book?
You can buy it at our table at the United Poultry Concerns table, also online, and I take credit cards. So, any other question? Maybe one more question. Looks like time for maybe. Anybody?
I have a question. Have there been any scientific or veterinary studies on the health of feeding chicken eggs back to chickens? Because I know that's a common practice
Yes.
for the farm sanctuaries.
Yes.
And it just as a vegan myself who has rescued chickens, who we do have them, that thought it was distasteful to do that.
Yeah. No, actually, and I should have mentioned it when I was talking about the eggs. Because what do you do with the eggs? Some people do just throw them away or compost them. But you can boil them and feed them back to the chickens. And that's actually what most sanctuaries do. That's what we do at UPC.
Right.
So it actually gives the nutrients, and they lose so much nutrients, calcium and stuff from the laying so many eggs. So it gives them those nutrients back. And they will eat them raw. I mean, they'll just eat them when they're
Does it lead
unfertilized.
to any kind of behavioral issues, like where they start eating or breaking their own eggs?
Yeah, that's an interesting
Right.
idea because a lot of animals, but specifically mammals, don't have a menstruation cycle. They just sort of reuse whatever eggs weren't fertilized.
Right,
in their
internally,
cells.
exactly. Yeah.
So they
So it's very similar to that.
It's,
You're right.
I mean, it's just an egg. It's not fertilized.
Yeah.
It's just going right back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So yeah, I mean, I know there's kind of an ick factor, but but it's very healthy for them and a great thing to do with the eggs.
Yeah, that's a good.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you.